Okay, so the purpose of this activity is to go over all things pertaining to charts, which is the fifth category of objectives on the Microsoft Excel Associate exam for 2019, and it's also on the 2016 exam, and there's not very many differences between these two. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to go ahead and tell you that the example that I'm using here actually comes out of an old textbook that I have for the 2013 version. And I'm going to have to modify this activity a little bit so that we can be sure that we cover all of the objectives and to prepare you for this certification exam as well as possible. So I am going to have to go off of my script a little bit, if you will. All right. So the first thing we're going to do in this file that you see here, I will have it linked in whatever manner, whether it be on YouTube, or you will have the opportunity to download this file and practice as I do in this video. So you will be able to work right along with us. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I want to do is I am actually only going to select, I want to select from cell A4 over to C12. Now, the textbook that I'm looking at tells us to select over here to E12, but one of the skills that is on the exam will require me to go back and modify this chart that we're getting ready to create. Now, when you select these cells like this, notice how I get this quick access or quick analysis tool that will allow you to easily analyze your data with some of Excel's most useful tools, such as charts, color coding, and formulas. So I can click on that, and then I can come down here and click charts, and then I'll have some different chart types that are available to us. And we want to select, for this activity, we want to select this first option right here of a cluster column. Now this is a clustered column. Columns go up and down, and these are clustered because we have multiple pieces of data on which we are plotting. So I want to click that, and then it gives us this chart title. So this is a very simple chart, a very common chart type that is using the name of these countries for the data labels that you see down here, or the category labels down here, and Excel automatically plots this data and creates these axis values based upon the data that is inside of the that we have actually selected. Now, if these numbers were much bigger or much smaller, these axis values would automatically reflect that. So we've created that chart. And then the next thing that we want to do, and by the way, we're going to create several different chart types, but for right now, we're going to stick with this clustered column. Now, the next thing is, this is something that is specifically on the exam, and it is how to switch the columns and rows. So basically, the way we've got this right now, we've got this set up so that you see, first you see the information grouped by country, and then you see the information grouped by the quarters that we have selected. But look what happens if I come up here and click switch row column. And basically what this does is that it swaps the data over the axis, and it's going to make what's on the x-axis on the y-axis and so forth. So now notice that it is first grouped by quarter, and now it is grouped secondly by country. So that is what is meant by switching the row and the column. And that is something that is exam objective 522 on the exam, and it's something that is as simple as clicking a button up here, switching row and column. Okay, so I've done that, and I actually want to come back and hit the undo button. And then the next thing we're going to do is up here in the chart title placeholder. Now this is one of the elements that if you're asked to modify a chart, and you will be modifying a chart, element is 523. So you would come up here, and this is your chart title. And by the way, I want to come up here and show you this button right here, add chart element. You've got all these different chart elements that are available to you, and if you did not have a chart title, notice if I roll over this, that chart title goes away. Typically your chart titles are going to go above the chart, but then you've also got a centered overlay, which means it's just on top of the chart and it's in the center. You also have axis titles, which the primary horizontal is left and right. Now when I roll over that, you see that this box is available where it says axis title, and I can come down here and I could, for example, if I wanted to type in the name of countries, I could say countries, and that way we know that these are countries. Now most of us, we can look at this anyway and we know that these are countries, so it's actually irrelevant. I want to go back, and you can do the same thing over here for primary vertical. You could do the same thing, and of course, you could look at this and you could say, for example, this might read in millions. All of these numbers might be in millions for all we know. So if you needed to add some clarifying information, you could. Now I want to come back and I want to uncheck these to take those off. And since the chart title is the next thing on the list, let's go ahead and delete this text and type in, and they want us to type in quarterly tour expenses. So that is your chart title. All right, so let's look at some of these other elements. And again, adding chart elements or modifying chart elements is Objective 523 on the 2019 exam. You've got data labels. So for example, if you wanted the numbers that you see in the table over here to appear on the chart, you can make them do that by clicking, selecting one of these options, and you kind of get a little bit of an idea of where it would appear. Now you could put it, for example, outside in, and in this case it's kind of hard to read all that because the size of this chart is so small. Now on the 2016 exam, one of the objectives is to resize a chart. So you could resize a chart by dragging these corner handles, and you could also move the chart to a new sheet. And that, again, that is on the 2016 exam. It does not appear that that is actually a specifically mentioned skill on the 2019 exam. So if you were taking the 2016 exam, you could click Move Chart and select New Sheet, and you would give that sheet a name and click OK, and then this chart would be on a sheet by itself. Now, I'm going to skip that for right now because I am primarily, at this point, I am preparing you for the 2019/365 exam. And again, if this chart was bigger, these numbers wouldn't be on top of each other, and you certainly have different ways that you can go about formatting this to make it so it would fit. And again, if you'll remember on the data labels, you were given several options, but for right now, I just want to select none. Error bars, these are more of expert level skills, so I'm not going to go over those. Grid lines, these are more of expert level skills. I'm not going to go over those. Now the legend, if you don't have a legend, now by default this chart type has a legend that's at the bottom. That's where it says Q1 and Q2 right now. Now if you didn't want a legend, you can roll over that and make that go away. And then trend line is definitely expert level skill. that we're not going to go over. Now right here you see grayed out where it says lines and up and down bars. The chart type that we've got selected right now, clustered column, does not include these options. So that's why they're grayed out. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to add alternate text to this chart. Now this is an objective that's on the exam. To add alternate text, that is basically if you wanted, if somebody was using this and you wanted to basically be able to write or create some notes based on the chart, you could right click the chart and go down to edit alt text, and then this is going to open up. And notice here it says, how would you describe this object and its content to someone who was blind? Okay, now here's the thing, believe it or not, people who are blind or visually impaired do use computers, and they have software on those computers that can read things to them so that they can hear it. So what you would want to do is come down here, is you'd want to type in, for example, if this was your quarterly tour expenses for Quest Specialty Travel in 2016. And again, remember I told you this textbook is old, and but it still works, and I'm going to try to stick to it as much as possible. But what I just showed you right here is specific objective 533. So this is something that you need to know for the 2019 exam and even the 2016 exam, so that if somebody was looking at this on a computer or using a computer, that this descriptive information would be read back to them through the computer software that they have on the computer. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in, and I briefly earlier I showed you, we talked about moving and creating chart sheets. Now as I look at the objectives for this exam for the 2019, it doesn't specifically say anything extra, it doesn't specifically say anything about moving a chart to its own sheet, but it doesn't necessarily specifically exclude it either. So I think at this point, and based upon what I'm looking at, I want to go ahead and click this chart, and I want to click Move Chart. And maybe I need to close this out first. And after pausing the video, I was able to get that to go away. And so now I want to click Move Chart to a new sheet, and I want to name this sheet, I want to name it Quarterly Chart. And again, if you're doing the 2016 exam, you definitely need to know how to do this, and I'm not 100% certain on the 2019 exam, because the exam objectives don't specifically mention it. Now again, the data that you see plotted here on this chart is tied back into what you see here on sheet 1. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is to go in, and I want to at this point go ahead and make this chart more like the one that's in the textbook that I'm actually looking at, which is going to require that we add data series to this chart. Now again, that particular skill is not mentioned in this textbook that I'm looking at, so I'm having to add it in, and that's why I only selected quarter 1 and quarter 2 data to start. So what I want to do is I'm going to come back up here, because I'm on my own chart sheet. I want to click this right here where it says Select Data. And notice when I go over here to select data, it says chart range, and it gives me a range for this chart. And there's a couple of different ways that I can fix this, but basically I want to change this from A4 to C12, I want to change that from A4 to E12. And again, there's multiple ways I can do this, but I just got to click up there in the chart data range and change that C to an E. And then when I hit the tab key, notice how you see all of that information pop up here on this chart. Now, it automatically adds this information, this data, to this chart. And you see all 4 quarters over here, and you see all of the countries that are included. So now if I click OK to close that out, then you see what this chart should look like if you were looking at the actual textbook that I'm looking at. Now, there are some other things that you can do with this that may or may not show up on an exam, but what if you wanted to remove some information from this chart? Well, you could go back to select data, and let's say you did not want the quarter 4 information included. You can uncheck that box right there and then click OK, and then you'd see how the quarter 4 information is gone. So it's, you could easily add it back in, but it's just not plotting. So that's what is meant by removing data from the chart. You don't necessarily have to come up here and change the chart data range, because everything that's in this range is available to be plotted, but you may not want to plot it for whatever specific reason. And then notice here also is the same option to switch the row and column. If I were to click this button, notice it goes back to what we had earlier, except that we had only plotted 2 quarters worth of information and not 4. And down here you see 4 quarters worth of information. So I do want to go back again and click that, and that takes us back to where we were started, and this is where we should be. Alright, so now that we have moved that chart to a new sheet, and that technically is resizing the chart. Remember I showed you resizing earlier, which is a 2016 objective, not necessarily a 2019 objective, but it's nice to know it. And it's been moved to a new sheet. And we've gone over the legend and how we can move that. So let's actually move this legend. So I want to come over here to add chart element, and I want to go to legend, and I want to move it to the right side, as you can see over here. So you can move that legend to wherever you want it to be. Alright, now some other things that you could do with these charts is you could go back and notice how down here it says for this piece of information, notice how it says USA. Now I know this is kind of hard to read, but this says USA. Look what happens if I go back to sheet 1 and I change USA and I change that to United States. And when I hit enter, I could go back to the chart and notice how the chart is automatically updated. So again, what you see here in this chart is tied in to this data that you see right here. And as you update it here, it should be automatically updated on the chart. Alright, so some other things that you need to know is to change the chart design. Now changing the chart design kind of falls under modifying chart styles or applying chart styles. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to go back to this sheet 1, and I want to go to cell D11, and I want to change D11, which is right here. I want to change that number. I want to type in 4568.92, and then they tell me to hit enter, and then I type in 610709. And then to hit enter. Okay, so again, I could go back and take a look at this chart, and you see how this data, how the chart changed a little bit because the data on which the chart is based changed. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back, we're going to click on this chart, and once we click on the chart, we want to go on the Chart Tools Design tab. Now remember, the Chart Tools Design and Format tabs will not even be available to us until we actually click on the chart. So the next thing we want to do is we want to select a quick layout button. Now over here you've got some different layouts on this chart that are available to you that are pre-designed with Excel, and some of these are probably better than others. And one that I like to use a lot personally is layout number 5, which includes this information. It actually plots that data down at the bottom. Now here they're wanting us to select layout 3, which is this one right here. And notice how that when I select layout 3 that it takes this information, and you know previously we had moved the legend from the bottom to the right. Well, this moves it back and it changes the spacing of the columns here. And this one, this is what they tell us to use, although it makes it a little bit harder to read in this particular setting. So I want to hit the undo button, go back, and now we want to change this from a column chart type to a bar chart. Now this is something that you may be asked on the exam. It may ask you, because one of the objectives is to apply chart layouts. Now it may ask you to modify or change as well. So this is one of those things that's a little bit hard to determine whether or not this is specifically on the exam, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. But if I were to click on that button to change the chart type, I can come over here and I can select bar. Now this video I'm making is, well, I have 2019/365 on this computer, so I have some different chart types that may not be on your computer if you're using a different version. So I'm going to come down here and click on bar, and then you see the difference is that a bar chart takes that information and rotates it sideways. Okay, so then you could click column, or I'm sorry, you could click OK, and then it would look like that. And if that's the way you want to present your information, that's perfectly fine. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to look at some other chart types. We're going to look at 3D clustered columns, so we have to come back here to column. And a 3D clustered column is this one right here, where you kind of get a view from the front and the side. So you're looking at it more from an angle, and you see what that looks like. And then we're going to click OK. And again, you know, we're talking about the visual or presentation of data, so it really is about looks. So you just got to determine what looks best for you. And now we want to go back to clustered column. So again, you could click the switch row and column. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong button. That's not what we actually wanted to click. We want to click change chart type. And then we wanted to come back and pick this one, so it's just a regular clustered column without being 3D. So now you click OK. And then we could go back again and we can make sure that we got the layout style number 3. And again, I am a style 3 chart style. Actually, they're wanting us to pick this one, the chart style, not a quick layout, but a chart style. Now, these different chart styles also will change the appearance of the chart in terms of the colors that are used and the shading of the background and things of that nature. And if you were to click the More button right here, you would see that you've got even more options available to you. And it's important to note that as you're working with these charts, that some of these settings that you change may override changes that you have previously made. And another thing you need to remember is that if I'm following the directions from a 2013 version textbook and I'm using 2019, style 3 on this version may look a little bit different than style 3 on the version for 2013 Microsoft Excel. Okay, so now that you see what those look like, then they want us to come back and click the undo button. And so we're right back here. Okay, now there are some additional ways in which you may be asked to format a chart. So what we're going to do is, with this chart still selected, and what we want to do is we want to go back and click Add Chart Elements, and then we want to come down here to Grid Lines, and then we want to select Primary Major Horizontal to deselect it. And what's going to happen is when we deselect it, these lines that you see here are going to go away. Now, of course, they may ask you any of these other options. They may ask you to add something in, primary major vertical, or primary minor horizontal, or minor vertical. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to select primary major horizontal and primary minor horizontal. And what we're going to do is we're going to add them both, primary major horizontal and primary minor horizontal. And then that way you see the major lines, the major horizontal lines that even up with the even numbers in thousands is going to be a little bit darker. And again, it's kind of hard to see it on this video, but if you've got a really big monitor, it would be you'd be able to see it a lot easier. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to go to the axis titles. So we're going to come back to Add Chart Element and go to Axis Title, and then we want a vertical axis title, and we want to come over here and type in the words expenses. And I actually you actually have to go in here, and on this one it may be easier to actually go in and use your keyboard, for example the arrows on your keyboard, to be able to get in here and just delete what's in there. So type in expenses, and then inside parentheses type in dollar signs, and you put in a dollar sign and then a right parenthesis. And again, you know, this is going to be one of those deals where if you were to print this out on paper, it would be much bigger on paper than what you are looking at it right here on the video, so it'd be easier to read. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is, and by the way, another way you could do this, they tell you to triple click on the horizontal axis title, which that's supposed to be down here, I think, but I'm going to come back here and I want to go to axis title, primary horizontal, and then here I want to triple click it. And triple click it, you got to be careful with your mouse as you're moving it. If you move it while you're in the middle of any of those three clicks, it's not going to select that entire paragraph, which, you know, even in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, if you triple click something, that'll select the entire paragraph. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type in tour countries. And again, remember, I'm doing this on version 2019 on the computer. The textbook is based upon 2013. So that's why as I go through this, I'm struggling just a little bit because there's some differences that I'm not able to take into account until it actually happens to me. All right, so some other things you can do that they may want you to do is they want you to right click on the horizontal axis label. So down here where it says Australia, Britain, and all that, they want you to right click that, and when you do, go to the font menu, and then they want you to change your font size from 9. They actually want you to change it to Times New Roman and make it size 8. So your Latin text font, you want to change it to Times New Roman. And you should be able to start typing in TIMES, and it would take you down there. rather than having to do this. And that's one of those time saver things where on the exam you only get so much time to do it, and you want to take advantage of any time saving methods that you've got. And even this, rather than me clicking this down arrow, you could have just went in under the size and typed that in and made it 8, and it would have saved you some time. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to use the Format Painter feature. So we want to right click on that, or actually you just click on it to select it, and then you can go under the Home tab and click Format Painter, and then you want to paste this to the vertical axis values, and you can see that that changed just a little bit. And by the way, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, I zoomed in to 100%, and that made this easier to read, and maybe that's something I should have told you to do earlier. And again, you won't be able to see the entire chart in the screen at the same time, but that's okay. At least what you're looking at you can see easier. So you could use Format Painter, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to format this chart title box, and we want to format the chart title. So we'll go under, should be able to click over here on the right. You've got your Format Chart Title pane, and then we want to change the border. So you'll come down here and select border, and what we want to do is we want to have a solid line border. And of course, keep in mind, there's all these other things that you may be asked to change. Now, I seriously doubt that you would be asked to change and go into that much detail on a core level exam, but just in case, it's good to take a look at that. And then the next thing we want to do is click the Effects button, which is right here, and it's got these different preset designs in here. And we want to select shadow, and here's your preset. So if you click on that, okay, so when you come down here and you've got all these different presets that are available to you, and you want to select the one that's called Offset Diagonal Bottom Right. And there's really no way of knowing which one of these is which until you roll over them and you let the screen tip show up. And so here's the offset category, and you're looking for offset diagonal bottom right. Offset and again, I'm looking for a shadow that is in that they mention in the book that I'm looking at, and again, that may not be one of the shadow options. And you know, in that case, it's okay, because the main thing is to know that these options are here, and you could pick whichever one. So anyway, I don't see the diagonal bottom right, so I am going to see if I've got one, this one right here, offset bottom right, and it's missing the word diagonal. And again, all that does is it changes the border in here, and again, it's kind of hard to see it, but you see a little bit of a shadow that's below and to the right. And again, I think that's the one they intended for us to use, but it's the name of it's a little bit different. And again, that's perfectly okay. You just want to know that those things are actually there. All right, so some other things that we can do for this chart that you may be asked is you may be asked to change the shape of a particular piece of data. So for example, what we want to do is we want to come down here and we want to click on any of these Q4 data representations, and you want to click on it one time. And when you click on it one time, notice how when I move my mouse over here, it selects all of those for the different countries. And what we want to do is we want to format all of these, and that's why it's important to click it once. If you click it more than once, then you're going to select only that bar for that country. So now what we want to do is we want to go to the shape fill list era under the shape styles group. So we want to come back up under here under the format tab, and here's the shape fill button, and we want to select orange accent 6. Now it says that is the first row 10th from the left, so it would be this one right here. And when you click on that, you're going to see how it takes that shape, and I must have accidentally double clicked this and made it so that I only selected that one. So I need to go through and do this again. And I think what I'm going to have to do, and this is something that it's a good learning experience, I'm just going to click off of this chart over here, and then I'm going to come over here and click on it again, and now you see how again I've got all of these selected. So I may have accidentally clicked a second time, but now all of these have the same color. Okay, so you may want to change the feel of that shape, which is what we just did. Now they tell us to click any column in the Q3 sales. So for these green ones, these olive green ones, now I clicked it one time and you'll see the handles on all of these. And now what they want us to do is they want us this time to go under the shape styles gallery, and they want us to click the more button, and they want us to find the moderate effect. And these are not, the category names are not displayed, but they want us to go to moderate effect, which is going to be a darker shade of whatever color, and it says moderate effect, olive green, accent 3. So it's this one right here that they want us to pick. And you can see how that changed appearance just a little bit, where it goes from a lighter shade of olive green to a darker shade. And again, these are all things they may ask you to format on a certification exam. And in reality, would I spend this much time making my details this fine-tuned? I probably wouldn't. All right, so now the next thing that we want us to do is to now they want us to go back and they want us to actually change that. So these are still all selected. I could look at these and see the handles are still applied to these. So I want to go back and I want to change the effects, and this time I want a subtle effect, olive green accent 3, so it's this one right here. And then you see how it changes. It's still kind of an olive green, but it really goes from a lighter green to a little bit more darker green. Which is fine. And again, you know, if you're in reality, would you fine tune this much? You know, probably not, but for the sake of a certification exam, you need to know these are some different things that you can do to this. All right, so some more things that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to look now, and we're going to create a different type of chart. And remember, you can you may be asked to do a lot of things on a certification exam, but you get to the point where when you start fine-tuning too much, some of the things that they may ask you to do, it may be more along of an expert level skill. So I think this video is pretty good demonstration for what you might want to do for an associate / core level exam. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a pie chart. So we're going to go back to this sheet 1 that's got the data on it, and we want to select cells A5 to A12. All right. Now, something else that you may have to do on a certification exam, and this is a very good example, is we want to select non-adjacent cells. So what we want to do is we want to create a pie chart based upon the total sales figures that we have out here. So to select non-adjacent cells, you have to hold down the control button on your keyboard, and then you click, hold, and drag. And you want to make sure that you select the same number of cells in each of these columns. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go under Insert, and we're going to go to Pie Chart. And we're going to go under 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 Pie Chart. And And you could go back to recommended charts, but I've also already told you we want to do a pie chart. So we're going, and you got a couple of different options. So here's a 3D pie chart we can do. You could do a donut chart. You could do any of these, but we're going to do a 3D pie. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we kind of want to drag this over from away from our data so we can see it. And I want to go ahead and close out my format chart area pane. And really doesn't matter where you drag it to. But now we want to change the layout of this. So we want to go and make it have layout style number 2. Now layout style 2 that we see here, actually it's this one that they wanted, layout style 2. Okay, so layout style 2 takes the chart title and puts it up here at the top, and it puts the names of the countries which are serving as the legend, puts it up here, and then it takes the numbers and puts them on the outside end of this pie chart. Now again, you could select any of these layout styles, and then you can even come back and select an overall chart style, which is more about the physical appearance of the elements that are on the chart. So again, this right here, the quick layout, kind of determines the elements and the layout that's on the chart, and then this, the chart styles, is more about the colors of those elements that are used on the chart. So what we're going to do now is we want to go and we did select layout style 2. So now what I'm going to do is we want to change the chart title, so I'm going to triple click that. And remember, if you triple click, you got to get it click, 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 and you got to make sure you don't move your mouse in between any of those clicks. And I'm going to make this say total expenses by country. And then what I want to do is I want to click on the slice for the India data point. Now the India data point is this kind of the orange one right here. So what I want to do is I want to click on this one. And I have to click this one a couple times and I have to be right on it. And then as you look at this, you're going to see that this orange, the India data point, is the only one that's selected right now. So now we want to right click that and we want to format the data point, which I've already got my format data point pane open. Now if that wasn't open, you'd have to right click that and select format data point, which is what we want to do. So what we want to do now is over here in the point explosion text box. And again, I'm going to be honest with you, this is something I think is probably more of a expert level skill, because I'm not even sure that I know what this is. But this is, got to click on, let's see if it's series option. No, let's see, it's not fill. Is it fix? Is it series option? See, it's series option. And again, this is something that I had to look for, and honestly, I didn't even know what it was there. If you didn't tell me it was there, I wouldn't know what it is. But what they want you to do is to make this go up to 40. And I'm just going to delete this and type in the number 40, because using those arrows would take a little bit more time, and on the certification exam, time is of the essence. And you see basically what happens, it pulls out this one piece of the pie by 40 points, maybe because you want that for India that data to stand out. Okay, so now what I want to do is when we want to look at one more type of chart, actually let's go ahead and take this and let's click on move chart. So you got to click on the chart first, and we want to click new sheet, and we want to name this as pie chart. And now that chart is on its own page. And again, there's all kinds of editing that you could have done to this, but that's what we want to do. And I really would like to, make a video and show an example of every different type of chart and every little thing that you can potentially change about a chart, but as you can see based upon the length of the video of what we've done so far, that would take a long time. But there is one more little thing I want to show you. I want to come back to this sheet 1, and we're going to do, let's take another look. We're going to go under recommended charts. And based upon whatever data that you have selected, notice that you have got all of these recommended charts available to you. Down here is what's called a Pareto chart. And then this is a funnel chart. And by the way, some of these charts are new to the 2019 version of Excel, which is actually on my computer, which is what I'm basing this off of. But you also come over here and you can click this tab where it says all charts, and you've got all these different categories of charts over here. So again, the ones that are recommended are going to be based upon the data that you have selected. Notice if I come over here, if I were to select all of this data right here, I want to come back and go under recommended charts. Notice I have different charts available to me. I've got more charts available to me. But even then, some of these charts might not be very appropriate, or they may not tell the story that you're really trying to tell. And this, I know this is a new chart type for 2019, a map chart, and I don't even know that much about it myself yet. But anyway, let's say we wanted to go ahead and if you look at all of these different chart types, you've got all these different categories. And then, for example, if I were to click on histogram, notice that there's two types of histogram. There's a regular histogram, which is this one, but notice up here you've got a different, there's Pareto again. So I think probably the Excel gods are wanting me to show a Pareto chart. So what I want to do is I want to come back here and I want to select these cells right here, and I want to hold down my control button again, and I want to select these totals. And I want to go back and I want to go under recommended charts. And just for the sake of it, I want to click all charts, and then again I want to go under histogram, and I want to come up here and click Pareto. And again it tells me, well, it won't tell me here, but if I go under the recommended charts where that was, notice here it tells you that a Pareto chart plots the distribution of the data in descending order of frequency with a cumulative line on a secondary axis as a percentage of the total. So this is a type of a combination or a combo chart, but it's actually under the histogram category. And I want to go ahead and click OK and show you what it looks like and give you the example that works for me. Now in this case, we're taking all of these individual pieces of data and we're getting a total for them. And this total right here, this line, if you notice how we've got two axes, we got axis that goes up in increments of 10 over here up to 100%, and then over here we've got individual numbers. And if you were to take and click on all of these points right here or roll over, you'd see the point. You'd see the values. This one, it's 26,863 for the United States. And remember, a Pareto chart is in descending order. So it's going to take these numbers and it's going to put them in descending order, largest to smallest. But you can add all of these up, and then you would get a total of 143,962.22. And over here, this line that you see, now you're not going to get a number on it, because again this is based upon a percentage, and basically what it's showing you is this. If you were to roll over this, if you the United States by itself, if you were to take a ruler and go straight out to this would tell you that the United States is roughly 20% by itself. The United States represents 20% of the tour expenses for Quest Specialty Travel. If you were to take in consideration the United States and Australia together, if you kind of roll over in the middle here, if you were to draw a line straight out, if you could, those two together would combine to be about 40% of the overall sales. And then you could throw in France, go in the middle here, go straight across. So the United States, Australia, and France by themselves would represent about 50% of the overall tour expenses. So that is it for this video. And best of luck to you on your certification exam.